Hi, and welcome to my very first episode of Transform with Tosca. I'm Tosca, and I'll be honest with you, I'm a little bit nervous. This is very new for me, and starting a podcast is something completely out of my comfort zone. But I feel like I have a message to share, a message that I hope will inspire and empower women who, like me, have struggled. So if you are listening, thank you for being here. This podcast is for women who want to transform their lives, not just physically, but mentally and emotionally. It's about becoming stronger, healthier, and more self compassionate. And I want to start by sharing my story because I think it will help you understand why I'm so passionate about why I do what I do and why I believe that transformation is possible for anyone. It's possible for you. And hopefully you can resonate with some of the things I talk about and hopefully it will help. So let me take you back a few years ago. I was in a very different place in my life. I was a burnt out school teacher, exhausted, and really trapped in a binge restrict cycle that I had been stuck in since my teenage years. I remember very well trying the Atkins diet, and it was a slippery slope from there. So, for anyone that doesn't know, binge eating is when you eat a large amount of food in a short time, often feeling out of control and overwhelmed by the urge to eat, even if you're not hungry. My relationship with food was terrible, to put it quite bluntly. I constantly swung between extremes, starving myself in pursuit of being thinner, then binging out of frustration and guilt. It was just an ongoing cycle. And I didn't even realize I was in it, to be honest. There were times when I convinced myself, oh, I'm being healthy. This is really healthy. And convincing myself that, well, this is a means to an end and I'll be happy once I lose the weight. Once I lose the weight, once I get the body I want, I will be happy and I will love myself more. That's not true. I was always chasing this idea of being thinner, believing that if I could just lose weight, believing that if I could just reach a certain number on the scale, if I could just get to that clothing size, I would finally feel really, really good about myself. I thought being thin was the answer to all my problems. I tried every quick fix and fad diet you can imagine: keto, low carb, fasting, you name it, I tried it. The thing is, these diets do work for some people in the long term, but they are the exception. It is very rare, and for the general population, they are not realistic and not sustainable. And I just kept convincing myself, like so many women do, that I'm just going to do it to kickstart everything. Have you ever heard that one before? I'm just going to kickstart it, and then I'm going to, then I'll learn how to eat properly. Then I'll, I'm just going to lose the weight. Then I'll go back to how I was eating, but I'll do it a little bit differently. Sure. It never happens that way. And yeah, sometimes I would lose the weight, but it never lasted. The weight always came back, and every time it did, I felt like a failure. I thought it was me, that I didn't execute the plan properly. I ruined it because I went to that birthday or that social event, or I wasn't prepared. What I didn't realize is that the reason it never worked, the reason these quick fixes and these extreme diet plans didn't work, was because they were not sustainable. And I kept going back to them. But it's a cycle. Diet culture makes billions from this. They make billions profiting from our failures. And what would happen is I would be really desperate to lose the weight really quickly because, you're promised results in 30 days, da da da. And so I would do it. And of course, I would fail because they're really extreme. And I would blame that kind of on myself, gain all the weight back, and then look to that diet again. And it just repeats. Or look to another diet, a better quick fix. And the truth is, if you have to keep going back to something, if you have to keep going back to a diet or back to a plan, then it didn't really work. I used to say, I'm going to do keto again because it worked. It really worked that time. I lost No, it didn't work because I gained it all back. The only way of eating that is right for you is the one that you can sustain forever. And because I kept failing these diets, well, what it meant was I just yo-yoed all throughout my teenage years and my 20s, I would say, going from being overweight to really skinny, overweight, really skinny. And what happened as a result was it really affected my mental health, and the negative self-talk became relentless. I basically bullied and criticized myself daily. I felt like I was at war with my own body. It was so draining. That cycle of self-hate for my body and the fact that I just couldn't stick to anything, and what's wrong with me, and why don't I have willpower, and why am I not disciplined, and why can't I stick to it? Pointing fingers at myself when the whole time the problem was the diets that I was following. It kind of became a dark cloud that followed me everywhere. And even in the quiet moments when I was alone with my thoughts, I would just kind of like pick my body apart. Yeah, I was really mean to myself. And I've been through some really tough times in my life. And I want to be honest with you about that because I know so many women can relate. Food is more than just fuel. And it became a coping mechanism for really difficult emotions that I wasn't prepared to deal with. And in my life, I've had to jump off two metaphorical cliffs, I would say, two moments where I made choices that changed everything. And you can probably remember some moments in your life where you've had to make pretty life-changing decisions or really, really scary ones. And you probably know how that feels. It's terrifying. The first for me was filing for divorce and ultimately ending a toxic cycle, a decision that initially turned my entire life upside down, but also gave me a chance to start over. And the second cliff was leaving my teaching job, a career that I had built my identity around, but that no longer brought me joy and wasn't good for my well-being, really. I didn't know what life would look like on the other side. Both of those decisions were so terrifying, but they were also the most empowering things I've ever done because they gave me the opportunity to build a new life on my own terms. They set me free. And anyone that knows me knows how obsessed I am with butterflies. I even have a butterfly tattoo. For me, the transformation of a butterfly really reminds me of my own journey. Not so much because the caterpillar becomes, this beautiful, stunning butterfly, but because of what the transformation enables. It's not so much about the appearance or how the butterfly looks once it emerges. What stands out to me is that the transformation allowed the caterpillar to fly, to break free from the confines of its former self. And in becoming a butterfly, it, is set free to soar, to explore, and to live in a completely new way. In a similar way, my journey wasn't about changing how I looked on the outside, but about finding freedom from the mental and emotional cages I had built around myself. The only time I was able to truly, truly get a hold of my eating habits and change them for the long term was when I realized this very important thing. I had to prioritize my well-being, and I always thought that I had to prioritize my appearance over my well-being, and that if my appearance was satisfactory, then my well-being would be great. But it's not true. And that's what I had to learn the hard way through all these extreme diets. And, I tried everything, girl. I tried fat burning pills. Oh, the diets that I did. Do you know I once I did the cabbage diet. Can you imagine the smell in my kitchen, and let's not talk about other smells, but I tried juice diets where I would just drink juice for 5 days. I mean, what was I thinking? Like, how are you supposed to sustain that? And what do you do after the 5 days? I still don't know how to eat. So I don't know what reasonable portions looked like. I didn't know how to balance my plate. I hadn't done any of the, work on my mindset and reframing my thoughts and my limiting self-beliefs. I did a diet. This is a no judgment zone, okay? And I know some of you have tried these diets, so don't even laugh and don't even judge me, because I've heard worse, but I would say my worst one was, wow. And I proudly took this into work as well. So I did this diet, which was, I think Beyonce, don't quote me on this one, but I think Beyonce went on this diet for like a film set. There's me comparing. This is another thing. You can't compare yourself to celebrities, You can't compare yourself to someone who has to go on a diet for a film that she's going to make like millions on. Like, I was not Beyonce. So it was this diet of like water, lemons, maple syrup, and cayenne pepper. It was called like the Master Cleanse or something. And she did it to lose weight for her role in the 2006 film Dreamgirls. Why did I think I was Beyonce, please? Why did I think that I could sustain something? I cannot believe that is all I was just chugging that down. It was disgusting. Can you imagine having an empty stomach and you're just drinking this water with this stuff in it? I felt sick. My hair would break a lot. Like, when I had chunks like in the shower. I never get that anymore, ever. Sure, hair breaks, but not like it did then. And I was miserable, but I just kept convincing myself that, it'll be worth it because I'm going to look great. And then I just totally binged on food, because life happens. You are going to be faced with food and all the foods that you're avoiding, and your body always backfires. That's what I kept learning every time. Your brain wants you to survive and your body's looking out for you. You cannot work against your body. You have to work with it. And for the longest time, I was working against it. I was punishing it, really. I remember, even exercise was like punishment for me. When I look back now, I realize it was, because I would go and just be on a treadmill for hours until I saw a number on the screen of the amount of calories that I thought was enough for the workout to be successful. So, I'd go in and say, right, today I'm going to burn 500 calories. I didn't know then, but obviously those calorie trackers are not accurate anyway, because I could go on the treadmill with someone else and we would both burn different calories because of our body composition, muscle mass, everything, genetics. That's the kind of thing I would fixate on, and then exercise just became something I hated. I just didn't have a healthy relationship with food or my body. And if that's you, I just want to say the best thing that you can do is work on this relationship with yourself, because it will really set you free. And going back to that butterfly analogy, it wasn't about the external change for me, but more about the freedom that comes with it. For a long time, I felt trapped by limiting self-beliefs and cultural and societal expectations that weighed really heavily on me. I come from an Albanian background, and just as a woman and a woman of that background, there are a lot of expectations and pressures to be perfect, to be specifically thin. There's a lot of value tied to being thin and pretty and all those things, and just to excel in everything you do as a mother, a daughter, a wife, whatever you do, you have to excel. And you have to also make sure your house is spotless and make sure you do everything with a smile and you take care of your appearance while you're doing everything as well. It's a lot. And these pressures made me feel like I couldn't be my authentic self. I was constantly trying to live up to ideals that didn't align with who I really was. And I felt stuck in a version of myself that was shaped by what others expected or what I thought others expected. But just like the caterpillar, I had to go through a process of shedding the layers of self-doubt and conditioning. And the transformation for me wasn't about changing my appearance, although that was a lovely byproduct. It is. I'm not gonna lie. I am pretty impressed by my physical transformation. It was about breaking free from the constraints that held me back, embracing my true self, and finally feeling free to fly. Becoming the butterfly for me meant embracing my own authenticity and setting myself free from the limiting beliefs and expectations and allowing myself to live in a way that felt true to who I really am. I'm now embracing a new version of myself that had never allowed to take flight before. And this version of me was always there. I think I just had forgotten her. And just like the butterfly, I had to go through a process of change, sometimes very, very painful, sometimes uncomfortable, but ultimately it set me free. Here's the thing though, I don't think I would have had the strength to make those jumps or spread my wings if I hadn't already started working on myself physically and mentally. The thing with building yourself up mentally and physically is that it starts to transfer to all areas of your life. When you deadlift your body weight or leg press the equivalent of 10 grown men, the strength you develop in the gym, it doesn't just stay there, it spills over into your mindset, into every area of your life. I noticed I was feeling more confident at work as well when I was a teacher back then. And that kind of physical strength just gives you a sense of power and confidence that makes you want to take risks in life, to give things a go and to see life from a different perspective. You start realizing that if you can push yourself past limits in the gym, you can do the same in other areas of your life. It teaches you to embrace challenges. It teaches you about your own strength, mentally and physically. It teaches you to trust your ability to rise to challenges and feel empowered to pursue your goals, no matter how big or small. The real transformation began with small, simple habits. It definitely started with nutrition, and I think that is, I would say, the best place to start. With learning how to nourish my body instead of punishing it, rather than thinking of things I could take away and restrict from my diet, which is a very punishing mindset. It is a mindset that is working against your body. I looked at ways to nourish it, to make sure I was eating enough nutrients, enough calories, enough macros. And then it moved on to movement, where I started exercising not to burn calories or punish myself, but to feel good, and learning how to take care of myself in a way that felt sustainable and kind. As a result, the excess fat slowly started to drop week by week. But this time it was different. It was slow, and I didn't set any deadlines. I didn't tell myself I have to lose this much by this day. I was just like, do you know what? And I said something to myself, which I always say to women now, and it's going to take as long as it takes. Give yourself a year even, and more, because it will take as long as it takes. And when you stop setting deadlines and these expectations and you put your patience pants on, the process just becomes more enjoyable. And when it's enjoyable, you're more likely to stick to it. I was actually enjoying it and feeling really good in the process. There was no more, I can't wait to reach X amount of kilos and then eat normally again. The way I was eating was something I knew I would be able to do for life. And, I'm not trying to lose fat now. I'm just maintaining my body weight. But the foods that I eat now are the same foods that I ate when I was losing weight. That hasn't changed. What changes is your portion sizes, but the diet is the same. And that's why whenever you want to start something, you must always ask yourself, can I do this for the rest of my life? If the answer is no, don't do it. If you're doing a diet, which is, one boiled egg for breakfast, something for lunch, something for dinner, and you have to stick to that rigidly, is it something you're going to do for the rest of your life? Then don't even start it. You have to eat in a way that works for you and your lifestyle. And people find this so hard to believe because I am a real gym bunny now, but I was someone who hated exercise. But I knew I wanted to be someone who exercised. But I just really hated it. And I had no shame in saying I hated it. And I still recall this moment at work when a colleague of mine, an ex-colleague of mine, asked me, she said, I don't know, we were talking about exercise and I said, oh, I don't exercise. And she said, oh, why not? Why not? And I just stopped and I thought, God, I've never been asked that before because it's so normalized to not exercise, and it shouldn't be because it's something you have to do for your health. And I just thought, what a great question. Why not? And it really made me think, and it made me look into kind of what was stopping me, what my barriers were. And it was the classic, I was too tired, I was exhausted, I had too much to do. And the reason I was too tired it was because I was trying to do everything, as a lot of women are. And I got into this cycle of being too tired by trying to do everything and be, a perfectionist in the sense of I have to do everything, all or nothing mindset. I had that mindset for sure. And then because I was too tired, I was skipping workouts, skipping meals, not fueling myself properly. And then because of that, I would try a quick fix or a diet. And then, of course, that didn't work. That just left me tired again, even more tired, even more burnt out, which then led to skipping workouts, skipping meals. Again, the cycle just kept going on around and around. I knew the benefits it would have on my mental health as well as my physical health and energy levels. And there's also no shame in saying that the aesthetic benefits also motivated me. And I'm going to be really honest with that. And I think most people's motivation to start a journey like this is for aesthetic reasons. And there's no shame in that. But there has to be more to it. Your reason has to be deeper than that if you want it to last forever. I didn't start exercising to look a certain way though. I started because I wanted to feel better. I started because I wanted to feel better. And then as I started to see my physique transforming, obviously it motivated me even more. But the real reason I wanted to get started is because my mental health was suffering and I knew something had to change. I was stuck in a very unhealthy situation where I felt like I had little control over the situation. And I knew that to cope and to become more resilient and to become stronger, I had to change my lifestyle. And I did it in slow steps. Exercise helped me deal with stress. It cleared my mind and it helped me connect with myself in a way I never had before. Because this is the thing, it becomes a beautiful relationship with yourself that you're working on and this journey that you have with yourself. And as I built small, consistent habits that actually felt good, not restrictive, I started to see changes, not just in my body, but in how I saw myself, in my identity. I became a woman who took care of herself, someone who prioritized her health, someone who felt strong. Wow, that was huge for me. Someone who showed up for herself. And slowly my identity shifted. I was like, wow, I like myself. I really like myself. And when that happened, everything else around me began to change too. There was a time when I absolutely hated the gym. It felt like a place of punishment rather than empowerment. I would force myself onto a treadmill and, like I said earlier, obsessively watch the calorie count on the machine or drag myself to HIIT classes that I dreaded. And look, some people love them. It's about moving your body in a way that works for you. That was not it for me. It felt like I was punishing my body for not being good enough, and no wonder I didn't enjoy it. I was also expecting immediate results and just giving up if I didn't see them. Like, what's the point? The all or nothing mindset really, really did hold me back. And looking back, I realize now it really wasn't the workouts themselves that were the problem. They just weren't right for me. And the goals that I was setting for myself were unrealistic and not sustainable. And people look at me now and they think, wow, she's so motivated. But it never used to be this way. I used to be someone who literally would take a cab just to avoid walking for 5 minutes. Anything to avoid movement. Like, I could be in the sitting room and I would ask my sister to go and get me something from the kitchen, even though it was like steps away. I was really sedentary and I knew I needed to make a change. So I started incorporating long walks into my routine. I think walking was where it all started for me, walking to work as a way to build a habit of moving that I once hated. And, I worked in central London, so it wasn't a very long walk for me, but it was something that I was doing for myself and really loving myself while I was doing it. I really felt like, wow, I'm doing this for me and this makes me feel so good. And I used to walk through the park and it was beautiful and I was in nature and just spending time with myself. And I just loved it. I loved it so much. I loved how it felt and it sent the message that I am capable, that I'm worthy, that I care for myself. And it built a habit of moving that I once hated. So my journey to loving movement started very small. I then started doing 10-minute YouTube workouts in the evening whenever I could. I didn't set strict rules for myself because I realized that whenever I did that, I always failed. And then I progressed to running and I even did like skipping with a rope. I was just trying a lot of things to see kind of what worked for me. And then in 2020, during the lockdown, I picked up some dumbbells and started lifting weights at home. That's when everything changed. I discovered how empowering strength training could be. And eventually I built the confidence to step into a gym. Once everything opened up again and lift weights. And I've never looked back since. Finding a form of movement that feels good to you is so important. It's the key to making it a lifelong habit. And improving my nutrition was another big piece of the puzzle. I think if you're wondering where to start, I would say the first thing you need to realize is that you have to stop looking at food as the enemy and start learning how to nourish your body. The enemy is the fad diets and the quick fixes because they never work. And this helped me break free from the binge-restrict cycle and heal my relationship with food. And as a byproduct of these healthier habits, I lost the excess weight and built lean muscle. But more importantly, I felt good. For the first time in years, I felt good in my body. I felt good in my brain. My mental health improved so much. And I knew this is something I could sustain forever. And it's been over 7 years now. Those changes didn't just improve my physical health, they transformed my mental health so much. And as I became stronger physically, I then became stronger emotionally as well. That strength allowed me to sit with my feelings, to really face underlying issues and traumas head on. And it allowed me to then make big life changes, to jump off those cliffs that I mentioned earlier, and to create a life I'm truly proud of. And that's what I want for you too. I know a lot of mums are listening to this podcast, and as a mum myself, I hear you. It is so exhausting. And as a single mum, I know there are so many demands on my time and energy. To be honest, these demands are there even if you have a partner. And there are days when it feels impossible to balance everything and taking care of myself as well. I know how hard it is to find the time to exercise or to cook healthy meals when you've got a million other things to do. I've been there. I'm still there. I still find it hard. Some days it feels like I'm just trying to survive. But I've learned that staying healthy and fit is not about perfection. It's about consistency. It's about showing up for yourself even when it's hard, even when it's messy. There are mornings when I wake up tired from a sleepless night and I still find a way to move my body because I know it will make me feel better. Even if it's not going to the gym but going for a long walk instead, it's a non-negotiable for me. And there are times when resting is priority, and that's okay too. There are evenings when I'm tempted to just grab something unhealthy because it's quick or just skip a meal completely, but I remind myself how much better I feel when I choose foods that nourish me and when I eat enough. Being a mum has really taught me resilience and determination. It's taught me how important it is to lead by example. I want to show my child that taking care of yourself is not selfish, it's necessary. I want to show him what strength looks like, not just physical strength, but mental and emotional strength too. And I can't do that if I'm not taking care of my body. Through all these experiences, I've come to understand the struggles that so many of you women face so deeply, and I hear you. I know how overwhelming it can feel to juggle all the roles you have to play while trying to meet impossible societal standards. The pressure to be thin is everywhere. The overwhelming feeling of not being good enough and the constant comparison to impossible standards is really draining. It's really tiring. But here's what I've learned and what I want you to know. The goal is not to be thinner. The goal is to be stronger, to build a body and a life that feel good to you, to treat yourself with love and compassion. Yes, you will probably be thin as a result. I don't know. Or you might have to gain weight. I don't know where your starting point is, but I do know that your body is not meant to be at a weight that it can only sustain through restriction, whether that's overweight, underweight, and that's something you have to accept. But I would never start with being thin as a goal. Stronger physically so you can move through life with energy and confidence. Stronger mentally so you can face challenges with resilience. And stronger emotionally so you can build self-love and compassion. This is where you need to start from. Self-love is the foundation of lasting change. You're not going to get the self-love after the change. It doesn't work that way. It starts with self-love. When you start from a place of kindness, everything else becomes so much easier. It's not about restriction or punishment. It's about adding value to your life. I can remember vividly a moment when I had completely lost control over food. I had overeaten and binged, and this was something I had started to cope with really difficult emotions. And over time, I just made a habit of it. And a lot of hormones are released when you binge, specifically dopamine and these happy hormones. And I guess just like smoking or alcohol, my body had associated binge eating with relief and a way to cope with pretty traumatic things that were going on in my life. And I stood in front of the mirror, tears streaming down my face, just filled with frustration and self-hate. I was so angry with myself for what I had just done to my body. I think I had eaten like over 5,000 calories in like minutes in like one sitting. But then something shifted. As I looked into my eyes in the mirror, I saw the little 5-year-old me staring back. It's really hard to explain, and I'm sorry if it sounds a bit weird, but I'm trying my best to explain kind of what happened to me in that moment. And I just felt, I think the best way I can explain it is that I felt a deep rush of love. I didn't see a failure or someone who messed up. I just saw a little girl, little Tosca, who deserved kindness and care. And I said, I'm so sorry I've been harming you in so many ways. And I just forgave myself. I forgave myself for the unhealthy situations and toxic cycles I'd put myself in, for all the times I had treated my body poorly or put myself last on the list. And I promised myself right there and then that I would change everything. And from that moment, everything began to change for me. So think about the little girl inside you, the one who once saw the world with wonder, without judgment or criticism. She doesn't need you to grab your stomach flab and pinch it, calling yourself disgusting. She doesn't need you to punish yourself by skipping breakfast or going for a run to burn off what you ate because you've been so bad. What she needs is love, compassion, and the reassurance that she is enough just as she is. She needs you to show up for her with kindness, to nourish her body with care, and to treat her with the same gentleness that you always offer to people you love deeply. She needs you to break free from the cycles of self-punishment and to begin healing one small step at a time, with the understanding that she deserves to feel good, worthy, and supported, and only you can do that for yourself. I had completely lost myself in motherhood and unhealthy environments. The demands of life, the constant responsibilities, and the pressure to always be bloody perfect left me feeling drained and disconnected from who I truly was. Somewhere along the way, I lost that playful part of me, the part that loved nature and movement, and not as a punishment, but as something fun and freeing. I used to love running and in the playground and as a child, and I just forgotten how it felt to enjoy eating food simply for pleasure without guilt or restriction. That joyful, carefree version of me was just buried under layers of stress, self-doubt, and the unhealthy situations I had put myself in. I wanted her back. I really wanted her back. I wanted to rediscover the joy of movement, to feel alive and to feel free again, and to reconnect with the woman who once danced, laughed, and ate without fear. I knew that in order to reclaim that part of myself, I had to make changes. I had to let go of the guilt, let go of the pressures, and to start honoring my body again in a way that was kind, playful, and nourishing. I really wanted that little girl back, and I think she's here. When I stood in front of the mirror that evening, I didn't set any unrealistic goals like losing X amount of weight or never eating carbs again. It wasn't about that. It was simple but profound. And I looked at my reflection and I made a promise to myself that I have kept, and I'm proud I've kept. And I said, I will take care of you from today. That's what I said to her. I will take care of you. I got you. And everything changed from that moment. And I've learned that it's not about being perfect. It's about being kind to yourself, even when things aren't perfect. When you approach your health and fitness journey from a place of love rather than punishment, everything shifts. It becomes about what you can add to your life, strength, energy, confidence, not what you have to take away. So if you're someone who's struggling right now, I want you to know that transformation is possible. It is possible. You don't have to stay stuck in this cycle of quick fixes and self-criticism. You deserve to feel strong, confident, and at peace with yourself and your body. You are capable of so much more than you realize, and you deserve to feel good in your body and in your life. And I'm here to help you on that journey. Thank you so much for joining me for this very first episode. It means the world to me that you're here, and I'm so excited to continue this journey with you. I'll be sharing more stories, strategies, and inspiration with you in the weeks to come. Remember, transformation is not about perfection, it's about progress and consistency. You are capable of so much more than you realize, and I cannot wait to see you thrive. Please don't forget to subscribe to this podcast so you don't miss any upcoming episodes. And if you'd like to connect with me or learn more, you can find me on Instagram at Transform with Tosca, and that's Tosca with a K, Toska. I would love to hear from you, your stories, your struggles, and your wins. Most importantly, your wins. We don't celebrate ourselves enough. We really should. Remember, you are stronger than you think, and transformation is always possible. Until next time, take care of yourself. You deserve it.